Hello, and welcome to the Project Good podcast. I'm your host, Anne-Marie Hilton. Project Good is a social impact podcast interviewing experts and advocates about the pressing problems that we face globally and hearing how they suggest we move forward in the future. The Project Good podcast is brought to you by Project Good Work. The goal of this podcast is to inspire people and organizations to develop a mindset that can move others to positive action regarding the complex social issues facing people and the planet. For August, we're focusing on happiness. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Bryce Johnson, who's a mindset coach, speaker, and the founder of Mindfully Motivate. He works to help people unlock a mindset that leads to a happier, successful, and more fulfilling life. He often tells people to take time to evaluate their habits to start the process of change and has weekly messages that make people feel empowered. Let's get into the interview. According to the latest happiness report for 2022, there has been an increase in interest in new and subjective measures when it comes to well-being. People in all societies have begun to evaluate their well-being over economic gains. The 2020 pandemic was a key catalyst to this change. Happiness is becoming so vital that governments are using it to develop and measure policies. Since it is estimated that about 60 to 70% of your happiness is controlled by your environment, today we are speaking with Bryce Johnson, who is a mindset coach and the founder of Mindfully Motivate. To learn more about the path to happiness and to create massive transformations in life, welcome, Bryce.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. I appreciate you having me, and I'm excited to be here with you today.
I'm excited to have you on, and I'm looking forward to, discussing happiness since it is becoming so incredibly important during these times. But before we jump into the questions, I wanted to get your answer and understand what inspired you to become a mindset coach.
Yeah, so for me, I was in my mid-20s and was basically chasing everything in life that society had taught me would bring me happiness. And I was the exact opposite. I was incredibly unfulfilled. I was chasing things like material possessions and clothes and cars. And I was looking for validation from external sources like friends and girlfriends. And I just woke up one day incredibly unfulfilled and incredibly confused because that's what I was led to believe was going to bring me happiness. And so I decided I had to make some serious changes in my life and started my personal growth and development journey. And after a few years of seeing drastic changes in my life, I realized I wanted to help others who were in the same situation. So that's kind of how Mindfully Motivate came about and how I became a mindset coach and a speaker.
Okay, that's cool that you had the experience personally, because one of the things I think that it's important when it comes to like helping others to sometimes have that same. Not, of course, you don't want to experience all the things. Let's say, for instance, if you're dealing with like abusive victims and things like that, perhaps you don't want to, have personally experienced that. But if you do, in those cases, still, it helps. It adds that layer because you can really have, empathy and understand what that person is going through, and help them to get to that next level because they see there's hope because you've been there, done that, and now achieved a whole different level in your life. So, one of the biggest things I think that people, think about on the topic of happiness is, I think right now, well, just in general, can you explain to us, I guess, why happiness is important in the first place?
Yeah, so I think happiness is kind of the foundation for everything we do in life. And that doesn't mean we need to be happy all the time, because that's actually not possible. We are always going to experience what I call less than favorable emotions or feelings. We're going to experience sadness, we're going to experience anger. But I think happiness is one of those emotions that allows us to operate at an extremely high level, regardless of what we're doing.
Okay. Happiness, is, I guess you would say then, based off of kind of what you're saying, is our motivator for life. And so that is, a key. I guess it's like our fuel. So, being that we're humans, of course, we need to eat, and so happiness then is the fuel, like food. I'm using it kind of both as an analogy and comparison here. Is that the happiness is the food to our spirit? Is that what you're implying then?
Absolutely. I believe that, and I'll bring in another analogy that I like to remind, some of my clients is that if you're not putting premium fuel or if you're putting premium fuel in your car, but not in your body, that you might want to consider reevaluating some priorities. And so happiness is some of that premium fuel. And what are we putting in our bodies? And that's not just food related. That's not just our diet. It's the entertainment we consume. It's the people we surround ourselves with. It's the activities we participate in on a daily basis that bring us happiness, that bring us that premium fuel and allow us to operate at that high level that I mentioned just a few minutes ago.
Now, do you think like can people like there's so many like so many times when I talk to people, people are think that their happiness is based off of things that are external. And so if something happens to them, that's great, of course, like well, that they win the lottery or something. Then obviously they're like yahoo yahoo. I just won the lottery and my life is wonderful. But can people control their happiness? Is happiness something that that you can go out and get, or is it deeper than that? Or I guess explain. I guess
Yeah,
happiness. Hmm.
really good question. And so for me, one of the biggest keys or secrets to happiness is understanding that it's a choice. We can choose or find happiness in the most simple moments in life. It can be pouring that cup of coffee in the morning. It could be watching a, father push his son on a swing in the park. It can be hearing the birds chirp in the morning or in the evening. And so, yes, people can absolutely control their happiness. Again, it doesn't mean we're not going to experience less than favorable emotions, and that's perfectly okay. But happiness to me is a choice, and this is why. Most people, I call it the if when game. Happiness has become an if when game. If I get the promotion, or if I get a promotion, then I'll be happy. If I get the girlfriend or boyfriend, then I'll be happy. If I get a new car, then I'll be happy. So when we start to assign happiness to those external circumstances, we're basically telling ourselves that we are not going to be happy unless they occur. And so we have
Hmm.
just given our entire power or our entire happiness component to something that we ultimately don't have control over. So that's why I like to make sure people understand that happiness is not if then, happiness is right now. It's a choice that we can genuinely choose in almost each and every moment. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. You know, I guess it's sort of having it's the same thing kind of with give or take, of course, where you are. You have different choices in life, and so you know. I think based off of a few they have a happiness report that actually has been running for I think at least for 10 years. And it was always surprising that sometimes some of the places that people were the most destitute and dealing with some tremendously difficult circumstances were the happiest people. You always saw them smiling, although they may have nothing from a material standpoint. Yeah, so I agree with you that from what I've seen, you can choose to be happy. Um, and so I guess, have you found that there is a common thread with people who are happy versus people who are unhappy?
Yes, I have. And I like how you mentioned that happiness report, because some of the happiest people in my life that I know don't have much. And some of the people in my life that have it all on paper are the most unhappy. And the common theme that I see amongst people who are happy is the fact that they fully embrace who they are. They're living as their authentic self and in alignment with who and what they believe. They don't look to other people for that validation or for that approval when they're living their life. And that is by far the most common element that I see in people that are happy versus unhappy. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, so happy people generally are comfortable in their own skin. They understand that they're unique and they're not like everybody else, and that that's perfectly okay. And they're not constantly looking outside of themselves to make sure, oh, does this person think I'm, cool? Do I need their validation? Do I need their approval for the decisions I make in life? And so that's definitely, among all the people I've coached and all the time I've put in, to the personal growth and development world myself, definitely the biggest theme I've seen with happy versus unhappy people.
Now, since you've mentioned, I guess, there's this thread of self-acceptance. Would you say that is like the largest contributing factor of why there's a rise in unhappiness in, I guess, our society?
Yes, I love that you bring that point in, because we have been so conditioned by the media and by society in general to constantly compare ourselves to others, to constantly believe that we're not good enough. Whether, we see these models or these Instagram ads, or, we get caught in the scrolling and we go, oh my gosh, that person looks so happy. And look at their car, look at their house. And we compare ourselves. But really, we don't know what that person's going through or what they're feeling. We're just comparing ourselves to an external circumstance, situation, vacation, whatever it may be. And so when we start to compare ourselves to others, we really go down this rabbit hole of, or spiral of negativity, and it becomes extremely detrimental, not only to our mindset, but to our overall happiness.
Now, I guess there's so many. I was going to say there's a crisis, but there's so many crises every day. So, I'm sure you're very aware, and you probably have, clients that come to you, that there is a mental health epidemic going on. And so, of course, I'm not a psychologist and or an expert in any of those things, but obviously, usually when people are going to seek help, it's because there is an element of unhappiness that they're dealing with. Otherwise, I think people probably wouldn't go seek help. And so, why do you think, I guess, I wanted to see how you think, like, happiness and mental health are, correlating with each other. Do you have any insight into those areas?
Yeah. So you're absolutely right with everything going on really in the world. Some of the changes that the pandemic brought along, it has created and express need or understanding for people to really approach their mental health and their mindset. And so that's the reason and really the foundation for everything we do in life, the way we think, our mindset, and is the reason why I got into being a mindset coach. Because you could have the best business in the world, it could be firing on all cylinders. You could have everything you need in your home life. But if you're not taking care of your mindset and your mental health, you're not going to be able to appreciate those things. You're not going to be able to show up for your family or your kids or your employees in the right way. And so I think mindset or mental health and happiness are directly correlated. And I think it's because people are doing too much or are really they're doing too little of what brings them joy in life. And we've become so stuck in this societal hamster wheel where we go to work, we wake up, we go to work, we come home, we watch Netflix, we eat dinner, we tuck the kids in, or we hang out with our spouse, and we do it all again. And we live for the weekend. And we're not doing enough of what actually lights us up. And that can be simple things. People, oh, I don't have time for skiing or hiking or these things. And it can be little things. It can be, maybe I just went for a 20-minute walk today. Maybe I got to read a chapter or two in a good book. Maybe I got to work on an arts and crafts project or write a song. And so I think people need to get clarity and direction on what makes them happy. And I think that's where all of this starts. Does that make sense?
It does. I was gonna say, what you brought up about, people are doing too much or too little, about, what lights them up. And so, one of the biggest things I think we've obviously just experienced or still experiencing, depending on where you are in the world, this pandemic. And so I think the pandemic gave people that break to step back. And ironically, or I guess not ironically, because we do not control the universe, that it happened in the year of 2020, to give us vision, a clear vision of where we were going and, what we were doing with our lives. And so I think the pandemic in itself gave everyone the chance to step back and say, what the heck am I doing? Is this, bringing me happiness? Is it, bringing me that meaning that I want in my life? As I mentioned in the intro, that it's a global thing now that people are looking at their happiness instead of even economic gains. So it's become so important. It's become vital. Like, I think we were all experiencing, or at least I'll say the people who were awake, because there are some people who are still like, what happened? um, but for the people who were awake, I think they saw that we were all, before this pandemic happened, running around like, a bunch of chickens with our heads cut off, and we were burning ourselves out. I know that I felt that. That was one of the reasons I ended up going independent some years ago, because I was just like, who can do all of this stuff and have a life too? Like, I felt that you had to make you had to make a decision. Like, do you want your life, or do you want to, like, spend your time, doing like nonsense and answering to do, like, a bunch of stuff that wasn't going to matter in 5 years? And so, I personally made that decision, but I think the pandemic brought that same decision to everyone. Like, you've got to decide, are you going to continue in the same direction? Or are you going to start, making an effort to do things that matter to you and maybe matter to the world? And so one of the biggest things, I think, to help people kind of sort through this, I'll say jungle of different things that are being thrown at us, is, first of all, can you define like what a healthy mindset is?
Yeah, and before I do so, I just want to say that was so well said, and I commend you for your decision because a lot of people have reevaluated their priorities the last couple years and
Mhm.
decided that, yeah, maybe I may take a little bit of pay cut in the interim or short term, but I'm happy, I'm fulfilled, and I'm doing something that really lights me up and building something that I believe in. And so I just want to commend you for that. And I think that was really well said. Um,
Thanks.
so, yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. So, what was your question there, though? I just wanted to commend you for that real quick. And anybody listening, to this episode, don't be afraid to do that because your mental health is more important than any job ever will be. Um, I don't mean for this to sound disrespectful, and I've talked about this before, but companies will replace you very, very quickly. And that's just the nature of business. That's not disrespectful. It's not because they don't care about you necessarily. It's just the nature of business. So always put yourself and your mindset and your mental health first and foremost.
Yes, I 110% agree. I think one of the things, though, that is a hurdle for a lot of people, and I think it became or it's becoming very easy and plain for people to see, is that people don't know what a healthy mindset is because they have been in this, they've been on the hamster wheel too long.
Yeah,
So can you kind of let us know what a healthy mindset means and what it looks like?
absolutely. So a healthy mindset to me is being aware of everything in my diet. And I'm going to elaborate on that because most people, when they hear the term diet, think food and drink. But our diets are who we hang out with. It's the entertainment we consume. It's the type of music we listen to. It's the books we read. It's it's everything. It's all encompassing. And so having a healthy mindset means that you are aware of what you are putting in your body, of what you're surrounding yourself with. And that doesn't mean don't have balance. I eat very healthy. I surround myself with very positive people. But I love a good cheeseburger or slice of pizza too. I and so there is some balance there. But overall, having a healthy mindset to me is about being aware and intentional with what you do, how you do it, and the effects that that has on your life.
Yes, I like that you expand the word of diet because the word diet I think just scares people
Very much
because
so.
because people are like, oh no, I'm not gonna, something's going to be taken away from me. That's the first thing people think of is like something's going to be taken away from me, and nobody wants anything taken away from them. And so, one of the things about diet, I think it's important. Um, I see with everything that we're experiencing, the people or that are experiencing the most effect of this is the young people, right? Because the young people, it depends, of course, on their age. But I guess the really young people being like, meaning like elementary students and things like that, or who are just, coming into the world and just learning about, how to function and things like that. Experience, I'm sure you heard some of the reports of some of the students, unfortunately. Um, I think some, ended up like there's, I think one person who committed suicide, and all these different things are happening to these, to the kids during all these different things that are happening. And so, for young people, I guess, why do you think, I guess, all these things are affecting them to, I guess, uh, a great degree? Because I'd like to think that we, shelter them a little bit. But do you think that there is a bigger effect being like, even though, let's say, we're sheltering them, they feel it somehow. I guess, why do you think that young people are so unhappy? Like, I always thought being a kid was the happiest time because you didn't have any responsibilities.
I actually, it's so funny you bring that up because I actually have a really good answer for that particular question. And when I look back to my childhood, I'll be 30. I just turned 33. I'll be 33. I just turned 33. When I was growing up, I didn't even have a cell phone until I was 16 years old. So
Mhm.
screen time and the age of information, as I call it, has played a drastic role in why young people are unhappy. So as a young kid, when you're in that, 8, 9, 10 into your teenage years, those are your most impressionable years. And with technology and social media and what young kids consume, it has created an extremely negative feedback loop and that game of comparison. You have young girls constantly comparing themselves to supermodels and dieting and doing things of that nature, and you see the bullying pick up. And um, I think a large part of the mental health struggle in young kids has to do with so much screen time and so much comparison. So, like, I don't know about you, but for me as a kid, the only time we got screen time was after we played all day outside and maybe we were having a sleepover and we were watching movies or playing video games like late at night. But all
Mhm.
day we didn't do anything like that. And now everybody is so plugged into their cell phone and so plugged into targeted ads. And it is creating these mental health problems at much earlier ages. And oh, by the way, at ages where kids are or people are by far the most impressionable.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I'm in the same era as you, so we didn't I didn't have a cell phone as a kid. So, I didn't have that experience that, now kids, they're like 5 years old already have a cell phone because their parents want to track them and all these things. And some of them know how to use the the phone better than I do. um and so so yeah, I think they are definitely taking on all these worldly troubles before their mind can really process it. And then, one of the things that I think, uh, obviously, we've got, the internet, we've got the TV, we've got, you can like log into anything in seconds and find out what's going on in like, places you never heard of before. Um, and so there's, what I guess you would refer to as a bunch of noise is out there. It's hard to, escape. One of the things is like, you don't even have to go anywhere. A real vacation is just turning off everything and not having anything on. And it's like, wow, it's amazing. I had that experience right before the pandemic. My husband and I, we went on a trip to a place that had no TVs or phones in your rooms, and you just had, and it was and we went to Jamaica, so it was outdoors, and it was just like you at the first you felt like you didn't know what to do with yourself because there was no phone to touch or any technology. But then afterwards you felt like you went off to a different planet. It was amazing. So in all of this noise, how can people learn to hear themselves versus these noises of society?
Really good question. And I love that term noise because there's so much noise in this day and age that we have to filter through. And especially at a young age, it's hard because, most 13-year-old kids on social media are following, TikTok dance influencers and things of that nature. They're not necessarily following content or people who are adding value. Does that make sense? And
Hmm.
so um, it's filtering through that noise at a young age is hard. And I think some of that comes from parenting. I think parents, to a degree, can have a little bit more of a impact or influence or hand or role rather in guiding or steering their kids. And again, I'm not telling people not to enjoy those things. Life is about balance. Enjoy the TikTok dances and enjoy those things, but don't let them consume you. And so I think that's where the term balance really comes in when talking about filtering out that noise or that content that is not productive. And sometimes we need that. As human beings, we need to just sit down on the couch and put on a Netflix show and be mindless for a little bit. Or
Hmm.
we need to pick up a good book and just do something, maybe it's a thriller or a romance novel or something. So something that's just going to allow us to unplug and kind of get into something, like I said, mindless, entertainment wise. But I think it's about balance. I think that's the key to filtering out most of the noise. And that's what I would encourage anybody to do who maybe sometimes feels like there's too much noise going on, is just to take a step back and figure out where they can bring in some new ideas or a little bit more balance into their life.
Yes. That kind of leads me to, uh, I guess, how shall I say? I'm into being healthy, but not, over the top. So, I do like yoga. But I'm not necessarily a vegan, but, I try to eat, healthy and things like that. So there's this whole movement, especially here. I'm out in California, so we always like to think we're ahead of the curve when it comes to things like self care and, diving deeper into yourself. And so there's this movement of mindfulness. And so, in my thoughts, and this is sort of how I was thinking when I was thinking of this question to ask you, is that how do this movement of mindfulness and gratitude and boundaries and values, how does that all have to do with happiness? I guess first maybe we should touch on the movement of mindfulness, and what does mindfulness really mean?
Yeah, so that's part of where my name came from in terms of mindfully motivate. And being mindful is just, again, being aware and being intentional. And so understanding that I can't eat a cheeseburger 7 days a week. That's not good for me or my body. And I know I touched on it earlier. I love cheeseburgers. It's
I
one of
like
my
cheeseburgers
favorite.
too.
It's one of my favorite things in the world. But I can't eat a cheeseburger every day. That's not good for my body. That's not good for my mind. And so, being mindful really is just about being aware and being intentional. And so, when you talk about things like gratitude or setting boundaries, that's what allows us to operate from a level of fulfillment or operate at an efficient level of energy. Because when we are not setting boundaries in our lives, it becomes very draining and very depleting, both from people, both from circumstances, jobs. And so, yeah, mindfulness to me is being aware and intentional and doing things that serve us in a positive way.
Hmm.
And so
Yes.
yeah, and you I
Mhm.
love how you mentioned yoga and meditation. And another a daily practice for me is journaling. And these are not practices that are one-stop shop. And so I encourage people to do some of these things and to try them, but they're not for everybody. And I understand that. So, one of the biggest ways to me for people to be mindful is to create routines that are simple yet effective. So, for me, Every single morning when I wake up, I have the exact same routine. I don't touch my phone. I get right out of bed. I journal for a few minutes and I jot down a few things that I'm grateful for, just to really bring some positivity and some good endorphins to start my day. And then I meditate slash do a little visualization. I do a little bit of breath work and I get outside and I move. I go for a little walk. Very, very simple. Doesn't take a lot of time, but it's highly effective routine that starts off each and every one of my days with being mindful and really sets me up for success.
Wow, I love that. Like, just, I like that you keep your routine simple, because, it could be just because of where I live, but, I feel a lot of pressure sometimes to be doing all of the stuff, making sure you're, going and eating food from the farmer's market, check out where your meat is sourced, do your yoga, um, get, check out what what you're wearing. And I guess there's a lot of pressure here in California to be conscious. But I like that the fact that your stuff that you mentioned is practical. Like, anybody could jump in and do that tomorrow and not feel like, oh my gosh, at the end, like, that they did a marathon. So I love that. Um, One of the other things, I guess, I wanted to ask you, if you were to tell, overall, this is a big question, and it's, hard to answer because, of course, we cannot jump into each person's mind on the planet. But what do you think that people need more than ever in these times?
Clarity. Clarity on what they want in life and who they are. And some people, okay, well, how do I get that? Grab a pen and paper and jot down some things that would be the ideal version of yourself. So if you looked forward 6 months from right now, what does the ideal version of you look like? What type of traits do they embody? What type of activities do they participate in? What does their family life look like? What does their career look like? And some of those questions, and this is a very simple activity, will give you so much clarity, because once you can answer those, you can build a roadmap for how to get there. And that's what's really, really cool about trying to gain clarity. So that would be my biggest suggestion for helping discover that.
I love that. Clarity, I was thinking a bunch of things, but clarity, that's exactly, because I was like, that summed everything that I was thinking in my head. I was like, oh, well, people need to take some time, but what they really need is clarity. And guess what? It was clear. I was like,
Right?
that, yes, because I was like, it's so simple. And that is, I think, when you said that, I was like, that is the thing that is holding a lot of us back, is that we have so much in our minds of, like, we should do this, and this is going to make me feel more fulfilled. This is going to get me to happiness. This is going to do this. But really, it's a simple answer. We just need clarity to step back and say, okay, I see it now. I love that answer, because that is exactly what each and every person does need on the planet. Because we are living in a time of confusion.
Very.
Yes, yes. So
Yeah.
clarity
And
is yes. You hit, as you could say, you hit it on the head on the nail, or the nail on the head. I'm always bad with those kind of sayings.
the nail on the head, the
Head,
nail
yeah,
on the
nail on the
head.
head, the nail
But
on
yeah, I
the
knew
head.
what you meant. And yeah, that's,
Yes.
if you ask most people what they want in life, or what their next 6 to 12 months looks like, or the the most common answer is, I don't know. It's
Hmm.
I don't know. And so that right there is a recipe for unhappiness. Because if you don't know what you want in life, how are you going to get it? If you don't know what the ideal version of you looks like, or what makes you happy, how are you going to obtain that? And so there's a saying, You know, the archer, when he pulls back his arrow, he goes to fire. If there's no target in front of him, what's he going to hit? He's just firing arrows downrange. But when he's got that target in front of him and he knows what he's aiming for, it makes it much easier to hit. So we have to get that clarity on our life in every aspect: who we are, what we want, what we believe, our core values, our family life, everything, what's important to us, what our non-negotiables are, what our negotiables are, what our boundaries are. And that by far, clarity is what changed my life a few years ago when I got into this business.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. I'm tucking that in my mind every time I think start to overthink. All I need is clarity. Um, and so I guess in thinking of people who have heavy minds, I wanted to touch on a few tips for people who are, in this time or have been in their lifetime dealing with depression. Do you have any fresh tips of ways that people can deal with depression?
I do actually. I don't know if they're fresh, but I personally don't think they're talked about enough. And I think a lot of people don't understand the impact that healthy food and exercise have on depression. And so I encourage people to start simple, start small. If you're experiencing depression, start by throwing a few extra greens or pieces of fruit into your diet. You don't even need to eliminate anything. Just start maybe with a green smoothie. Start with a couple extra pieces of fruit a week. If you're not somebody who exercises, you don't have to jump into the gym and start bench pressing or taking that spin class right away. Go for a 15-minute walk outside. Little things like that have such a drastic impact on our mindset and really are depression coping mechanisms that are free and simple. And so that's always where I tell people to start. And even just after a couple weeks, you'd be amazed at the changes you feel in your body and your mind just by starting small in those two areas.
Yeah, I like that. Yes, I think we forget that what I'll say, get moving really does work because it changes your mind because when you're doing something you're in that moment, and so you're concentrating and you're focused on what you're doing at that moment, and all your other thoughts tend to evaporate because you have to concentrate on what you're doing. So that's a easy and wonderful tip. Um, and I wanted to find out now. This is getting a little bit more personal and what you're doing. Can you tell me a little bit about the direction that you're going with Mindfully Motivate, and just about your company in general?
Absolutely. So, Mindfully Motivate started as an entity to help people, as you kind of mentioned in your intro, live a happier, successful, more fulfilling life. And that's through the foundations of mindset and self care and love and habits. And so for me, I was chasing things that society told me I needed to be happy: the cars, the clothes, the beautiful girlfriend, all of these things. And I was so unhappy and so unfulfilled because I didn't love myself. I was always seeking external validation. I was always looking for outside sources to make me happy, when all along, each and every one of us have that within. And so, Mindfully Motivated started as my own personal growth and development journey. And a couple years in, I realized I had a gift to be able to connect with other people. And so I really wanted to help others. And so right now, I work with clients one on one. And I will soon be launching group coaching, a podcast, and my website so that people can really connect with me on different levels and different offerings. And that's why I'm so passionate about what I do, is because I've made my mess my message. I've been in
Mm.
the trenches. I've been unhappy. I've been unfulfilled. I've been the person that has chased things that ultimately didn't matter. And so that is really the short story of how Mindfully Motivate came about and why I am where I am today and why I'm so passionate about helping people.
Yeah, I love that. I love, I always love when people turn, something that was a challenge in their own life into, something that helps change the world and change people. And I always say change the world because people are the world. If we keep changing individual by individual or helping them be their best selves, it makes a difference because we don't know, who they're going to touch, but we know that there's a ripple effect. So I'm always so happy when I hear people are taking the challenges that they have experienced and turn it into something that, spreads hope. Yeah, so happy to have you on the podcast, as I mentioned before. Um,
Grateful to have joined you today. I enjoyed this conversation. It was very fulfilling, and hopefully everybody listening was able to take some good nuggets away from this one.
Yes. And so I have one last question. It's going to be kind of a two-part question. So I'm asking two questions in one because I was like, let me wrap it up, but but I want to get more out of you because I've enjoyed our conversation. And so I wanted to know two things. What's the most important thing that you have learned about happiness, and how do you define happiness?
Yeah. So the most important thing I've learned about happiness is that if you are constantly searching for it, you will never catch it. Or if you are constantly chasing it, you will never catch it. It is not something that comes from external sources. It is something that you choose in almost each and every moment. And so that would be the biggest suggestion and lesson I've learned about happiness, is to not attach it to external circumstances, places, people, or things. So, that answered the first part of your question. And the second part of your question again was what, Anne Marie?
It is what is happiness?
Yeah, and again, happiness is, it's just a choice. It's being present. It's being in the moment and enjoying what is in front of me right now. That's why I think it's that cup of coffee pour in the morning. It's the kid swinging on the swing with his dad. It's We get so focused on the future, or we get so stuck in the past that we forget about the beautiful moment that is right now. And that those two lessons about happiness, and my definition of them and what they mean to me, are really some concepts that I've had change my life and that I've also been able to help change others in really positive ways.
Yes, I love that. I've really enjoyed our conversation because I've liked that you have woven your own experiences and also things that you have observed in society. And so I hope for all the people who are listening that this has been helpful and given you hope that if you are on your journey to happiness, that this will start to give you a path to follow. So thank you, Bryce, for your time and insight. To learn more about this topic or Bryce Johnson, you can find him on Instagram at Mindfully Motivate. If you have a passion for an unserved community, a social justice problem, or want to change minds, contact Project Good Work at projectgood.work to start your project of change today. Subscribe to our mailing list at projectgood.work Subscribe to get our episodes and articles sent to you each month. Plus, if you subscribe, you get 10% discount on any project forever with Project Good Work. So you can go to our website at Project Good Work. That's projectgood.work. To our listeners, thanks for tuning in to Project Good, where we're focused on what matters. Thank you.